Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. My name is Kevin. Well, today I'm building another one of our hoop coops, this time for our ducks. We want to move the ducks to our new piece of property, and the shelter that we have for them currently isn't portable. So we're building something new, and then we're actually going to turn their old shelter into a new chicken coop for our laying flock of chickens back at the house. The hoop coop that I'm building for these guys is a little bit different than the one we built a few weeks ago for our new laying flock of chickens. It's really about the same design, except it's only 8 feet long instead of 12 feet long. Let me show you what it looks like. So just like the other hoop coop, this one is built out of cattle panels and 2x4s. And then I covered the entire thing with chicken wire. There's going to be a tarp that goes over the entire top, along with some wind straps. And then on this one, something that I'm going to do a little different, because the ducks don't roost like chickens do up off the ground. They just sleep on the ground at night. I think we need a little more protection from predators. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put some plywood along the front and the back to give them some extra protection. I'm hoping to get that all accomplished today. Now, like I said, this one is a little bit smaller than the one that we built for the chickens. This one is only 8 feet long, so it's 7 feet wide and 8 feet long. I wanted to show you guys that you can build these in any size you want. This one uses just 2 cattle panels, and this time, instead of cutting them, I just overlapped them in the middle, so they're still full cattle panels. I've gotten a lot of questions over the past few weeks about what size cattle panels we used. Standard cattle panels are 16 feet long by 50 inches tall, and that's what we're using for this project. So the things that we need to accomplish on this again today are putting the tarp on, the wind straps, the plywood in the front, and then building some nest boxes down on the ground at the back so that the ducks will have a place to be able to lay their eggs. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. It's supposed to get hot out today, so let's get started. So just like on the last hoop coop that we built, we're going to be using some of this heavy-duty billboard material for the top. These are actually old billboards that a friend of mine gave me, the kind that you would see along the freeway. This stuff is super heavy-duty vinyl, and it makes a great top for things like this. So I'm going to unfold this. I've already got this piece cut roughly to the right size. It's a little too big, so we're going to put it over, and then I'll get it into place and then cut more off if we need to. Now, I'm doing this on my own this time. Sarah's still recovering from surgery. She's doing well, so thank you guys all for your prayers, but she can't be helping with these types of projects right now, so I'm on my own. Let's get this started. Now this edge of the billboard actually has a nice hemmed seam right here. So I'm going to actually leave that. I'm going to use this as my edge over here, and then we'll pull all the slack that way. That'll give us a nice straight edge to start with, which always helps. To secure these, I'm just using some fender washers and some 1 5/8 inch screws. Now to start with, I'm only going to put 3 screws in this side just to hold it so we can pull it over to the other side. Then we'll come back later and we'll put a bunch of them, probably 10 or more, just so we know we have it good and secure. But for now, I'm just putting 2, 1 on each end and 1 in the middle. Now I've got this other side pulled where I think it needs to be, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off this excess, but I am going to leave a little bit extra here so we have some play if we need it. You don't want to cut it so close that if you're wrong, you don't have any left over. So I'm going to cut it maybe 6 inches longer than where I think it needs to be. We can always cut more later. All right, now that we have this cut, I'm going to go ahead and attach this side. I'm going to do the same as on the other side for now and just put 3 screws, then we'll go back and put more later on. All right, now that I have that attached on both sides, I'll just go around and double check it a little bit, and then I'll put in all of those other screws. The top is all on and cut to size. Couple things left to do to make sure that it's good and secure. First of all, you can see here on the front and the back, there's a little slack. What I'm going to do there is I'm going to use some hog clips. They look like this, and they just go on with the hog clip pliers. I'm just going to do that, probably 5 or 6 of them along this edge here, just to help hold the tarp on a little bit better. I don't want to put too many because it does make a hole in the tarp, but it will clamp it onto the frame. Then we're going to put our wind strapping on, and I think we'll be good and set. All right, the next thing we're going to do is put on the wind strap. Now, if you're not familiar with what this is, it's material that looks like this. This will basically go from one side to the other, and it'll go on the outside of this piece of vinyl, and that will hold it tight against the cattle panels if a big wind comes up. This is actually left over from when we put up our greenhouse. This stuff is awesome. I'm almost out. I'm hoping there's enough to do 3 straps on here. If not, I'm gonna have to order more, but we're gonna do as much as we can. Basically, I'm just going to attach one end again with a washer and screw, toss this over, attach it on the other side, and I'm hoping to be able to do that in 3 spots. The top is completely on. Actually went smoother than I thought by myself. Luckily, it's not a very windy day. I've got these wind straps on. You can see now that these are attached tightly over the outside of the tarp. And that way, if any wind blows that tarp from the inside as it kind of goes through the hoop coop, it'll still hold it tight against this cattle panel. So I think that's going to work out perfectly. It has on the last one that we built, so I don't have any reason to believe that it won't work out great here as well. So the next step is going to be adding those pieces of plywood to the front and the back to give the ducks a little more protection. Now my plan with this is to use just 1 sheet of plywood cut in half. Because this hoop coop is 7 feet wide, if I cut a piece of plywood in half at the 2-foot mark, we should be able to do 2 feet on the front and 2 feet on the back out of 1 sheet. First thing I'm going to do is cut 1 sheet of plywood in half. Alright, so I've got the plywood put on the front and the back. On the door, I decided to put it on the inside just to make it a little easier with the hinges and everything that are on the outside. But I think this is going to work out well. This is going to give a lot more protection from predators. If nothing else, they'll at least be out of sight of the predators, which I think is a really good thing. So the last thing that I need to do on this one for the ducks is to build some nesting boxes. And I'm going to do that in the 2 back corners. Now, ducks don't always use a nesting box like a chicken does. A lot of times they'll just lay wherever they are at the time that they need to lay. So typically what we do with our ducks, we don't let those out to free range until a little later in the morning, because they almost always lay their eggs first thing in the morning. So we'll leave them locked up maybe till 8 o'clock or so, and then by that time they're done laying their egg for the day. By building some nest boxes in here, hopefully they'll use them. But if they don't use them, at least we know all the eggs will still be in the hoop coop. So I'm going to build 2 nest boxes. I'm basically going to just use a piece of 2x4 at a diagonal in the corners, and then put some bedding in there and hope that they will use that as a nest box. All right, the hoop coop for the ducks is complete. We put that plywood on, we've got a good solid top on, and we built the nest boxes. The only thing left to do now is to move the ducks down here. I actually have a friend coming over tonight who's going to help me move the original hoop coop that we built. We're going to put it right next to this one. My hope is eventually to have several of these kind of lined up here on this part of the property. These are a really affordable way to make shelters for your animals. Now, like I said in the past, if you're the kind of person who needs everything to be perfect and square and all of that, these shelters might not be for you, because when you're working with these cattle panels, you have to kind of roll with how they turn out. But I think this turned out well. The animals certainly don't care if not everything is perfect. All they care about is being protected from the predators and the environment, and this is going to do a great job. Once we get the original hoop coop that we built moved down here, we'll be ready to move the animals. We'll bring you guys along for that. Well, it's the next morning. Last night we got the original hoop coop that we built moved into place. So now we have both of them here. There's a few things that I need to do yet to this original one. I'm going to add wood to the front and the back, just like we did on the one for the ducks. And I'm also going to add some nesting boxes for our chickens. They're not quite old enough to start laying yet, but they will in the next couple months. So I want to get those nest boxes in, so whenever they're ready, they have them in place and they're ready to use. We're also going to add one more perch inside of this one so that they have adequate room to get up off the ground when they want to. I'm hoping by this evening we can move both the ducks and the chickens down here so that tomorrow morning they'll wake up here in their new home. Let's get started. All right, I've got the plywood put on the front and back, which will give them a lot more security. Now we're gonna put another perch inside of the hoop coop. Let me show you what we have now so you can kind of idea of what we're going to do. Currently we have just one perch in this hoop coop, and it's actually pretty low to the ground. I did that because when we put the chicks in here, they were still pretty little. Now they're just about full grown, so they need a higher perch. I'm gonna leave this one here so they can get up on it easily off the ground, but then I'm gonna add a second one up a little bit higher. Now because this hoop coop is only about 7 feet wide, and I want them to have the maximum amount of perch space, I'm actually going to use an 8-foot 2x4 and kind of put it at an angle so they have a full 8 feet of perch space. I think that'll work out well, and it'll give the chickens just a little more room to roost and a little bit higher up off the ground. I'm going to basically build it the same way that I built this one. It's just a 2x4 that I notched out on the ends so that it can sit on the wire of the cattle panels. And then I'll just use some wire clips here on the sides to hold it in place. And it's worked out really well on this one, so I'm not going to do anything different on the next one. Let's get started. Alright, I think that's going to be perfect. Now they can jump from this lower perch up to here and have a nice place to roost at night. Alright, last thing that we need to do is put in some nesting boxes. I'm actually going to be recycling some nesting boxes that we had in our other chicken house. I just need to make some modifications to them so they'll work here in the hoop coop, and then we'll be all set to move the chickens. These are the nest boxes that I'm going to be repurposing for our hoop coop. It's just 4 boxes, very basic, but they're still in decent enough shape that they'll work out great for these chickens. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build 4 legs on this. I want this about a foot off the ground. You always want your nest boxes to be lower than your perches, otherwise the chickens will have a tendency to want to perch in the nest box. So we're only going to put this about a foot off the ground, and I think that'll work out great. Alright, I think that'll be about perfect. Now we'll just move it into the hoop coop, and then I'm going to attach it to the cattle panel so that it can't tip at all. We'll put some bedding in, and this project will be done. Now to attach this to the cattle panels, I'm going to be using this plumbing hanger. This is probably something that I use just about more than anything on our farm. This stuff comes in so handy. It comes on a roll. It's like 100 feet or so of it long, and you just cut off what you use, but this stuff is just amazing. I use it probably every day for something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this around the cattle panel and then bend it to the top of the nest boxes. We'll put a screw in. And that is nice and attached. There's no way that that is going to fall over. We're going to do the same thing down on this end. Alright, those are secure. This cage is done. Everything is ready for the chickens to move down here. Just before we move them down here, I'll put some hay in here, but other than that, this project is completely done. Now we won't move the chickens and the ducks until evening, The ducks will never catch during the day. They're too hard. They're out free ranging. The chickens, it's just a lot less stressful to move chickens at night, so we're gonna wait and do all of that tonight. I'll show you guys tomorrow morning when they're moved down here, and we'll let them out for the first time at their new home.
Well, good morning everybody. Hasn't Kevin done a fantastic job with these hoop coops, bringing them over and building the one for the duck house? It looks fabulous. This morning is exciting. We're gonna let these birds out for the very first time in their new location.
We'll keep a close eye on them today to make sure that they don't wander too far from the area that we have them in, although they do have pretty much free access to the property. Now the chickens that we're going to be letting out today, these chickens have never free ranged. When they were little, we didn't want them to mix with our other flock of chickens and combine into all one big flock, so we've kept them separate on purpose until we could move them to this spot. Now we'll let them out and they'll have free range of the entire farm.
I expect the ducks to burst out like they normally do. But the chickens, they might be a little bit more unsure. It might take them a little while to come out and explore their new surroundings.
Let's let the ducks out first and see what they do. Well, it looks like we've got 2 duck eggs this morning, so that's good. And one of them laid in the nest box and one of them didn't. So, like I said, this is why we don't let the ducks out till a little later in the day. So at least we know where the eggs are. All right, let's open their door and see what they do. I wonder if they're confused because we moved them last night after dark. They may not even know that they're in a new spot until they came out this morning and suddenly they're like, hey, wait a minute, this looks different. Let's let the chickens out and see what they do.
We have 21 chickens in this flock.
Doesn't look like they want to come out on their own, so I'm gonna actually move their food outside of their hoop coop and see if that will get them to come out. Well, I guess I'm impatient. I'm just going to chase everybody out. There we go. That worked. Well, I'm glad you guys spent the last couple days with me fixing these hoop coops and getting them moved into place. I'm very happy with the way that they turned out. I think the improvements that I made on them are going to really help the animals be more secure, and I think that this is going to give them a great place to live.
Did you guys see that we have 2 little silkies, black silkies? and we have 2 little bantams. They're such a special little addition to this new bigger flock that we have. I'm excited to be able to just watch them be kind of quirky and silly. We've never had them before, so it'll be nice to see how they are as little bitty chickens.
If you're not a subscriber to our channel yet, I hope you'll hit that subscribe button before you leave. Remember, as always, the absolute best way that you can help us is by sharing our videos on all of your social media with people that you think would enjoy them and that are like-minded. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care, and God bless.
God bless.